me the opportunity to come here. I'm excited to talk to you about my strengths, my successes, and how we might translate those things into what you guys are doing here in Roane County Schools. You're doing some great things, and I'm excited about how we might be able to mesh those things together. So professionally, I am a special education teacher. I was born and raised in Johnson City. I went to Tusculum College to become a special ed teacher, and I got drafted to move back down this way. My bride is from Monroe County, and so that's where we've lived for the past several years. And started in special education. I always felt like special education teachers had an knack for problem solving and things of that nature. I always felt like it was a challenge to try to make sure that kids had the opportunities to overcome whatever deficit areas that they're working with. And so that fit nicely with me. From there, I feel like those special education skill sets that I had fit nicely with what Ms. Johnson was looking for as an assistant principal at Olive Springs Elementary School. So I worked there for a couple years, and I believe my special ed knowledge helped her, and in turn, she helped me way more than I ever helped her. She helped me really think about some common sense things about ways to work with teachers and ways to work with kids, and just really an amazing opportunity for me to get some great administrative experience and ability to move forward through the administration process. So I had the opportunity to move to LaDonna Elementary School as a principal, and one of the most favorite jobs I ever had. It was a lot of fun, had a good opportunity there. I was there for 4 years at Loudon Elementary, and then moved into the central office as a 6th through 12th grade supervisor, and assistant director for 2 years following that. And then for the last 8 years, I've been the director of schools in Loudon County. And obviously I see you guys at TSBA meetings and things like that, being neighbors and such. Personally, that's who I am. Professionally, professionally, that's who I am. Personally, been married to my bride for 20 years. We've got 2 children. I've got a 14-year-old son that's a freshman in high school and a 16-year-old daughter who's a junior in high school. We've got 2 cats, family cats, Precious and Izzy. And my little girl, she's a cat lover, and so I'm a former professional cage fighter. I don't know that I would have called my cats Precious and Izzy, but my friends get a kick out of that. They think that's funny. So then now they're my wife's and my cats instead of my children's. And I love life, and I'm excited about the opportunity to talk to you guys tonight. Thank you so much for this great opportunity.
Okay, Dr. Vance, we'll start the clock on you here. It is noted, Mr. David, 5:36. Okay, Dr. Vance, first question tonight. These are all, again, questions from the board. If you are and have been successful in your present position, why would you seek to become the Roane County Director of School?
I feel like I have been successful in Loudon County. I believe we've done some really amazing things, but my question is, why not Roane County? I think that you guys are doing some equally good things here in the school system. You guys got some really positive accolades moving through your evaluation system. I believe that academically you're making some great strides, and I think that you got some challenges too that are intriguing to me in regard to your building program. We've been able to move through our building program successfully, and I think that that's an interesting process, and certainly something that has been a challenge for us, but also provided a great amount of opportunity to move through. And it was really neat to see how that process worked. And really, just to be honest, it'd be full circle. You guys give me my first opportunity as an assistant principal to get into administration, and I'd love to have an opportunity one of these days to say that we accomplished a lot of things in my tenure once I retired, hopefully from Roane County Schools. I believe that, just quite frankly, that together we can do some positive things. I spoke to Mr. Yates, spoke to Ms. Watkins, and they both have lauded this board. They said you guys work seamlessly together, you got a singular vision, you want to do what's right by kids, you want to support teachers and administrators, and that's what I'm about. I'm all about trying to make sure that we do things that support the community and make sure that we provide a product that's going to help us move forward in a positive fashion.
Listen to this, and by the way, you should have a copy. Do you have that copy?
Yes, sir.
So you have the copy. You can follow along. Pay attention to some of these questions now that you're going to be evaluating each question. What do you believe are the greatest attributes for top performance as a director of schools, and what do you see as any deficiencies for yourself as director?
Well, I tell you what, let me, if you don't mind, I would love to take the latter part first and talk about my deficiencies. As a director, if you hadn't already noticed, I speak really quickly. And, that's an area of that I need to work better at. So now when I tell people that I speak to, some of my teacher audiences and faculty, staffs, and things of that nature, I say, if you listen really quickly, we go along just fine. Because I feel like I need to slow down sometimes. Another thing that I think is challenging for me to work on is my competitiveness. I love to win. I want our kids to do better than other people's kids. I want to be able to have athletic teams that are better than other people's athletic teams. I don't care if we're drinking water. I want to beat you. And sometimes I need to really think through that process and make sure that I'm pacing ourselves appropriately. I don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're trying to jump out and do too much at one time. In education, you've got so much delayed gratification, so it's really challenging to say, I want to be here, but in order to get here, you've got to implement steps to make sure that you're not choking teachers with so many different things. In education, specifically in Tennessee, we've seen so much change. Change in standards, change in the evaluation, change in the way that we evaluate teachers, change in the way that, we do so many different things. And so you got to structure in a way that supports our folks to be able to take one step at a time. So it's really challenging me sometimes to slow down and say, we can't do it all today. We've got to pace ourselves and figure out a way to do it over a period of time. In regard to the greatest attributes, I think you need somebody that's a common sense person, somebody that cares, somebody that listens, somebody that's going to roll up their sleeves and jump in and work when they need to. Somebody's flexible, somebody that is approachable and wants to get out and see what the actual problems are so they can help create solutions when it's all said and done. Somebody that's a great communicator. You need to be able to communicate effectively with the board, make sure the board's apprised of what's going on. And then I think you need to walk across the hallway and talk to county commission and help them appreciate that vision, help them understand why it is that we need the things that we need. And so ultimately, you need to be a lot of different things in order to be a superintendent and be one successfully. I think one of the biggest attributes to be successful is somebody that can help manage a team. It takes all of us on the Board of Education, it takes all of us in leadership as far as teachers, assistant principals, custodians, our whole support staff, teacher assistants and everybody, to help make this thing roll forward in a positive direction. So I think if you can figure out a way to help the team move forward in whatever facet that is, if you're Canadian geese flying out and you're the one out front leading the pack, so you help with the wind resistance, sometimes great, sometimes you got to be in the back cheering everybody on, helping them understand that there's a way that we can do this thing together. So a lot of different things, and I hope that anybody that you speak with that knows me truly will tell you that I'm not great at a lot of things, but I work really, really hard in order to try to make sure that our team's successful.
What would be your vision for safe Roane County schools?
Well, having safe schools is probably one of the most important things we can have. I think if parents aren't comfortable dropping their kids off at school, if kids aren't comfortable coming to school knowing that they're going to be safe, they're not going to be able to learn as well. And parents obviously aren't going to be as content leaving their babies there. So we've got to make sure that safety is our priority. We've got to make sure that we've got plans in place to support drills, and it's a shame that we've got to talk about that. I mean, it's just terrible that we've got to think about active shooter drills and things of that nature. We've obviously always done fire drills and tornado drills and things like that, but it's a shame that we've got to practice the other drills. But you got to have a plan in place. As I read through your 5-year plan, as I read through your e-plan online and some of the different things, I'm inspired to hear that you've got a school resource officer that helps go around and review some of those plans to make sure that people have practiced those and they understand what it looks like and how they can continue to hone those skills. And so I think it's really important to continue to look at that. I think it's important to bring your stakeholder groups together, your emergency responders together, to make sure that you've got plans that are effective, and if they're not, what can we do to tweak them in order to be the most successful that they can possibly be. But really, when it's all said and done, you've got to have a strong academic atmosphere to support kids. You got to have strong other support networks in order to support kids and teachers along the way. But if you don't have a safe environment for kids to be in, if they don't feel safe and parents don't feel safe, they're not going to learn. So you got to take care of those skills. You got to take care of those prerequisites before you can actually get into the other things that truly support you academically.
Dr. Vance, what's your vision for future classrooms? And how do you feel about virtual classrooms?
Well, future classrooms, I would have said a few years ago that you can't, let me say that future classrooms are probably going to look a whole lot differently than what we've got right now. And I think we've got to be flexible. I think we've got to be prepared to meet kids where they are. Ultimately, when it's all said and done, whatever decisions that we make, we got to keep our kids, first and foremost, and at the center of our decision-making process. And if we can do those things, everything else will work itself out. Whether it's in a classroom one-on-one, whether it's virtually online, or somewhere in the middle. But when I think about virtual classrooms, I think that that's something that we've got to explore, because kids need to be competitive with their surrounding county peers. They've not only got to be competitive with them when they graduate from our high schools, they got to be able to be competitive with people across the state of Tennessee and nation for those college opportunities and career opportunities along the way. But I'll tell you, Mr. Qualls, when I think about virtual learning, as much as I love that, and I'll bet that when most of our kids go to college at this point in time, many of them will have virtual online classroom learning experiences. It don't matter what kind of technology you've got, you cannot replace good teaching. We've got to invest in our teachers. We've got to make sure that they've got strong professional development so they can have good pedagogical skills to work with children, to meet them where they're at with whatever needs that they have. So we need to give kids as many opportunities as they can virtually or in a classroom or whatever mix that is, in regard to our partnerships with higher education. But we've got to make sure that we invest in our teachers and make sure that they're prepared. In Loudoun County, we're going through a process of trying to go one-to-one. We've got enough technology to do that, but not all of our teachers are prepared to make that transition at this point in time. And I'll tell you, some of the best classrooms that I've ever seen, some of the best learning I've ever seen, had nothing to do with technology. Now, with that being said, we all know that kids are native to technology, and they will have to learn how to use that in order to advance their skill sets once they graduate. So I'll say that I think that the future is probably somewhere in the middle. Kids have got to have a virtual learning opportunity at some point in time, but we've got to make sure that we're taking care of teachers along the way and supporting them with technology needs.
Question 5 is a three-parter. If you'll note there, Jason, it's under the umbrella of communication. And certainly we would all agree that communication is a key. But what the board would like to know, and the important thing here is the two words in that next part, how and what. Relate how and what methods you might use to communicate with the following constituent groups, and that being first, supervisors, principals, central staff, secondly, board members, and thirdly, the community. So if you would, start with A and then work your way down.
Absolutely. So when I currently work with supervisors, principals, and our central office staff, it is not uncommon for us to have monthly or meetings where we'll come together, we'll talk about some of the different things we're doing in the classrooms, in a central office setting. Or it's not uncommon also for us to go into schools and do classroom walkthroughs to see how we're handling those types of situations instructionally, and have conversations along the way. And so if we're all principals sitting at the table where we're doing, obviously at central office, there's a lot of back and forth. I try to make sure that when we have central office meetings that we gear it more towards professional learning as compared to them coming over to the office and me dumping information in their labs, or central office supervisors giving them information and saying, you gotta go back to school and do all that stuff. I wanna have some back and forth. I wanna work through scenarios. I wanna make sure that we talk about issues that they're experiencing and how other schools are handling those issues. So, we've got a good cross-county collaboration about what's going on, and different principals get a different flavor from each other. So that's been a great ability for us to be able to grow our own people. It's not uncommon for me to text them or to email them or to call them or to go visit them personally. I want to make sure I'm in schools often. People know who I am, and I'd love for all of our kids to appreciate who I am. I know you guys are a little bit bigger here than we are in Loudoun County, so I don't think it's uncommon, and I don't think it's too hard to think that you couldn't be in every one of your schools, even though you have 17 schools, to make sure that you're in all schools, reading to kids and helping kids understand who you are and that sort of thing. With board members, we've got a board that loves to text and call and meet in person. At one point in time, I had a board member love to get faxes. I don't know why anybody uses a fax machine anymore, but if you love a fax machine, I want to make sure I fax you, so whatever it is that you need. And so, I think whatever the communication need is, whatever your preferred method of communication, I think that's important. As a board member, you've got to know what's going on in our schools. You've got to know how we're doing business and why it is that we're doing certain things. That way, when you've got constituents out in the community that are asking you, hey, you know, what are you doing here? You got an answer for it in your back pocket. And you don't have to, you know, act like you don't know and, you know, call somebody to the office to get that information. You gotta know. Just as much as you gotta know, we've all gotta be on the same page. You know, all of our supervisors, our central office staff, our principals, everybody has gotta have that common knowledge and know what that vision is and how we're meeting those needs along the way. And when I think about community, you guys are doing some interesting things with some of your Twitter messages and your Facebook, and I'm really excited to see you talk about your CTE programs and some of the gifted things that you're doing. I'm excited to see you guys promote the positive things, and I think we just need to enhance that and continue down that road and help people appreciate, you know, that we can communicate with them in a number of different ways and have PTO meetings, have opportunities to come out and have coffee with the superintendent, donuts with dads, and muffins with moms, and things like that to encourage greater parent participation in all of our schools. I don't think it's uncommon for really strong communicators and leaders to meet with groups of people in certain areas. And when I think about the community, I think about an array of different people. You know, you've obviously got parents, you know, but you've got commissioners, and you've got religious leaders that you need to meet with, and you've got other youth group leaders that you've got to meet with. And so I just think the more you communicate, the better. The more you can continue to get your vision out, your message out. Here's what we need to do in order to be successful. Here's how we can partner in order to be able to help our kids move forward. I think the better that the school system will be.
Okay, number 6 is, how would you involve board members on school business? And would it be important to use standing committees to vet issues which impact the school business? Board business.
All right, Professor, you guys might have to steer me in this direction right here. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll stab at it until you tell me if I hit the mark right here. I think that you need to be involved in most business. Now, you hire a superintendent. That's a really important job of yours. And, you know, my vision and my interpretation of the way TCA works is you guys obviously set policies. You guys set the budget. That's a huge job. And then, you know, another huge job of yours is to hire a superintendent. So hopefully after you guys hire me and we figure out what we're going to do to move forward, then we'll set the stage for everything else. With school business, I think it's really important for you guys to know everything that's going on as far as the inner workings. But you know, there's so many different times that I think that you just need to trust that the central office team is going to be able to facilitate it, or the principal team is going to be able to facilitate those business directives that you give us. But with that being said, I've seen it work both ways. So just a couple examples. I remember working on a policy committee, and we had a lady that was just phenomenal to keep us on track. And she would look at our policies that TSBA recommended and compare and contrast the surrounding counties. And that worked out great. She was phenomenal to help keep us on track. And we loved that committee because she was going to help us do the work. And, you know, we all contributed our piece of research, and that worked beautifully. On a different coin, we had a committee one time that was in charge of working with bus transportation providers. Now, I know you guys own your own buses, so it's a little bit differently than what we do in Loudoun County, but we've got contractors, we've got 9 of them that operate 48 buses. And so, you know, we had a board member that, you know, was communicating with contractors, and he'd come out and communicate with us, and the communication was choppy. It didn't work as seamlessly and effectively as I felt like it could have. And he admitted that it wasn't the best situation, and it almost pitted one against the other. So we decided that we would not have a standing committee, but we just have to meet with them as a whole board or the whole central office, and any board member that wanted to come out with us obviously welcome, but we would still take that process a little bit differently. So when it's all said and done, if you guys love committees, I love to work with committees. You know, I think that's important, and if you feel like that's an engaging way to move forward, we want to do that. If you feel like it's a job that we need to take care of from my office in whatever form or fashion that might look like, we obviously want to, you know, get to work and make sure that that's done. But no matter what it is, no matter what we do, we want to make sure that you guys understand what the bottom line looks like and how that process works from start to stop. I want to make sure that you got the information in order to make those business-related decisions.
Okay, question 7. We're approaching the halfway point. You're using your time good. Speaking fast, move. 7th question is about director flexibility. It's under the umbrella. There's 3 parts to this, and we're going to ask you to take each of those at a time. First, how do you deal with resolving conflict? Secondly, how would you evaluate administrative changes? And third, how would you respond to parent-guardian issues after it's gone through the appropriate chain of command? So, go back and if you would, please start with 7A under Director Flexibility.
Okay. So I wasn't sure how the questions would work or what time frame that I might have an opportunity to speak about this issue. And so I think this is a great opportunity to get this one out on the table. Since we're neighbors, I'm sure you've noticed that I've been in the news a couple different times over some conflicts that I've had with one of our local basketball coaches. He's a good man, and I think he's a really good guy. He's worked really hard this year, and the news has portrayed that I've been a bully in that situation, and it's been a terribly challenging conflict for my family. Quite simply stated, I think it's a tempest in a teapot. I think it's blown way out of proportion, and I would, trying to put myself in your shoes, I'd want to know, if you feel like I'm a good candidate for this position, is that going to be something that jades me? Is that something that's going to be challenging for me to overcome, or what are we going to do? I've got 3 years left on my contract in Loudoun County Schools. I loved Loudoun County for years. Been there for 15 years now, and it's been an amazing place for me. But the position that I've been put in has been quite challenging. I feel like I advocated as a parent for my child. I don't feel like I was malicious, intentfully hurtful in any form or fashion. Felt like I did it appropriately. Worked through the chains of command just like I would expect any other parent to do. And I believe that it was just an unfortunate set of circumstances. Again, that's been blown way out of proportion based on some other decisions that I made that have not necessarily been politically correct. Some decisions that I believe are student-centered, but obviously hurt people's feelings. And there's going to be decisions and times that I make, decisions that aren't always popular. But I believe that every decision that I make, I will try to make sure that that's student-centered, do the best I can. But I got to tell you, I'm human. I make mistakes just like anybody else. There's some mistakes that I made during this process that I should have done differently. There's some ways that I communicated that had it to do over again, I wouldn't have done it the same way. So when it's all said and done, I feel like I want to be transparent. I want to bring everybody to the table, talk about what issues we've got going on and why we're doing it that way, and try to make sure that we come up with a common sense decision that helps us move forward in whatever that process might be. My wife and I have really struggled with this. I believe the Lord's blessed me. I believe He's blessed us with the common sense to make sound decisions, common sense about what I should have said differently, and sometimes the common sense know when to keep your mouth shut. And so, I believe that I have handled resolving conflict well over the past several years, but there's a couple things that obviously I would have done differently. So, I would love to talk to you guys more about that. If you've got specific questions or concerns, I would if I were you. I mean, quite honestly, I know that's something that's weighed on my mind as I approached this interview. And I thought, is it going to influence you guys or not? But again, I want to encourage you to reach out to my board chair. If you got any questions. I think Craig would be very straight and tell you exactly what's going on or what's up. Talk to any of our principals. Talk to our school board lawyer. And I think that he would walk you through that process and help you with that. Transitioning into the second question, how do we evaluate administrative change? I love several different books and several different things that speak about how to handle administration. I love a lot of John Gordon's books. He's got a lot of different things about the energy bus, about being excited about what you're doing, being inspired and fired up. I'm a very passionate person, and I believe quite deeply about what I'm doing in education. I also love Jim Collins' book when he talks about good to great. I think that's what you got to do. I think you got to evaluate the people that you got in your system. How well do they fit their current school buildings? And then you got to put the right people in the right seats. And when you think about administrative change, I don't think that's something that you can take lightly. I mean, it's hard to make principal decisions, principal moves, and things of that nature. It's really hard for you guys to decide on a director of schools. You'll have 8 candidates. I'm sure you're frying your brain trying to figure out who has got the most appropriate skill set to help move us forward from where we're at. And so, similarly, I think for a superintendent, that's one of the toughest jobs that we have, is making sure that we've got the right principals in the right seats. We've got 9 schools in Loudoun County. 8 of them are principals under my leadership. And obviously principals turn over, more frequently today than what they used to when I was a younger man. And by the way, my wife and I talked about this on the way up here. I remember when I interviewed 8 years ago for Loudoun County superintendent job, I said, I wish I had a couple gray hairs, that way they didn't think I was a baby. And so I finally got a couple this time. But and I think making principal change will sometimes give you gray hairs. But again, I think it's putting the right people in the right seats, and I don't think that principal change should just happen on a whim. I think that it takes a lot of data, gathering, a lot of decision-making processes, a lot of communication, a lot of prayers, a lot of guidance from the Lord to show you what direction you need to go. And then I think ultimately, at the end of the day, you make a decision you think's in the best interest of kids. And concluding with the last question, how do you respond to parent-guardian issues? I think that you listen to them. I think parents oftentimes want to listen. They want to hear what, they want you to know. They want to know that you're listening to them and that you understand what's on their heart. And they want to know that you're going to take that into consideration and make a decision that's going to be supportive of their kid. And sometimes I think that we have to take into consideration what we've done. If we've done wrong, we need to be honest and own it, back up and try to figure out a way to make it right. But then again, if the school makes a decision that's appropriate, I think you have to support your people if they've done what's right, and help parents understand why it is that we arrived at that decision process, and show them that there's a way for us to move forward together. Done a lot of that, especially this time of year in the spring. It seems like there's so many crazy things going on with athletics and kids getting excited about summer and spring and that sort of thing. And so just making sure that we're attentive to what's going on and we support them and just help them. Those are my babies too. I mean, they're oftentimes with us as much as they're with moms and dads. And so I think that's how I handle that situation.
Okay, if you would flip to that second page. Question A is a two-part question, and it's under the umbrella of experience. So the board would like for you to relate your experience in dealing with these two issues. First issue would be improving job training skills for special ed and physical developmental loss handicap. And then the second part would be building partnerships with business and higher ed.
Let me say, I love this question. You guys got some tough questions on here. I feel like this is right in my wheelhouse. Again, I'm a special education teacher. My wife is a special education supervisor in Blount County Schools, and quite often, we'll talk about special ed issues and how do we handle them and what's the most appropriate way to support our kids and support our teachers. And teachers have got a huge job in trying to make sure that they help kids with whatever deficit areas they've got in order to help them to be successful in the classroom, help them to be successful in obtaining a job or an opportunity to go to college in some form or fashion. So I believe that we've got that covered in relation to our jobs. I've got a kid that's got an IEP. And so I've got quite a bit of experience and knowledge in working with special education kids. We've written several grants to try to support our students to be able to have handicap modalities and things of that to support them in whatever obstacles that they're overcoming. So I feel strongly that when we think about special education kids, we've got to obviously meet them where they're needed. Some kids have academic issues, some kids have other health-related issues, some kids are just needing somebody to give them some support. It's a shame that we have kids that come from such a challenging background sometimes. So just try to make sure you meet the kids where they are and support them and help them to move forward in whatever it takes in order to get there. I feel very strongly, very passionate about helping special needs children. And in addition to that, I think it's important to help regular education teachers too. I think most times special ed teachers have that background knowledge, with their training. But sometimes, we neglect to realize that regular education teachers have these babies in classrooms, and sometimes they have very minimalistic training. And so just providing professional development to make sure that they've got those skills to be able to support those kids in whatever that their needs are. And parents too. My wife has done a great job in Blount County Schools, and something that I've been jealous of, that we've not done quite as good of a job, but I love the way they do parent affairs. They bring parents out and they talk to parents, the teachers and the teacher assistants do, and speak to them about skills that they can work with their kids on to help them to be more academically successful. So I think it's just being a well-rounded leader, trying to make sure that everybody's got that skill set in order to be successful. And then when I think about building partnerships with higher education, it kind of goes back to the question that you guys asked earlier about virtual education. You can't have enough partners with higher ed. You've got to make sure that you're reaching out and providing as many opportunities for your kids as possible. And when I think about our partners, we do a lot of business with TCAT. Harriman's got a program in Loudoun County. And if you guys would not keep them so busy, we could get some more of their business. But they love you guys, and I know being in your back door, it works really, really well for you. We've got auto diesel mechanics and welding programs over in Loudoun County. We're adding nursing and cosmetology and another program if they'll have enough staff to be able to facilitate that. We've also worked with South College and student teacher placements. I'm on the board with LMU. I've worked with a number of other colleges in regard to student teacher opportunities, but simply stated, you cannot have enough partnerships with higher institutions in order to make sure your kids have those opportunities. We do a lot of dual credit things with Roane State and Pellissippi State at both of our high schools. I know that you guys do a lot of those things too, as well as AP classes. I think that you just need to continue to push forward and make sure that you're providing kids opportunities to be successful no matter what level that they are, so that when they leave high school, people will be able to say that those kids are successful. Those are Roane County kids, and they're coming to us prepared in order to be successful in this level.
Okay, question 9 would come under, it's a 3-part question. It is under the umbrella of instructional leadership, so keep that in mind on each one of these. How important is it for students' ability to read on 3rd grade level when they're in the 3rd grade? How can Roane County improve the graduation rate? Couldn't do it tonight. What is your comfort level from 1 to 5, 1 to at least 5 the greatest, where you see yourself as an instructional leader? If you'll take those one at a time.
Yes, sir. So, how important is it for kids to read on grade level by 3rd grade? I think it's really important, but I think we need not kid ourselves. The state goal is 75% by 2025, and in Loudoun County, we're not there. And I feel like we've done a really, really good job trying to make sure we catch kids up. We partner with the New Teacher Project, and we've started doing some instructional pacing guides where administrators are walking through classrooms together as teams to look at where teachers are at, trying to make sure that we provide resources for them to look at the standards and to look at the pacing and to look at the evaluation tool to make sure that we're being seamless in the way that we move forward. I think that we're on track in Loudoun to be able to be there by 2025 with our 3rd graders. I'm not exactly sure what Roane County is. I looked at some of your E-Plan stuff online. I know that you got some really specific goals with English language arts that I think are very attainable, but the bottom line is it's really important to make sure kids can read and they can do math. If they can't do those things, they're not going to be successful at the middle school or high school level, and obviously beyond our doors once they leave us, when they graduate from our high schools. So ultra important that we make sure that we provide resources. But it's not rocket science. All right, so I love the movie Remember the Titans. You guys seen that movie? Coach Boone, he's talking about his offense and what they're going to do. They're getting ready to go to the sports camp, in the summer camp. And his assistant coach, who used to be the coach there before Coach Boone came, he's talking about, Coach, we got to run these trick plays. We got to do this. It'll help us, trick the defense. And he's like, no, we run a split back veer. It's like Novocaine. You give it enough time, it'll be successful. Similarly, I don't think it's rocket science. I think if you give teachers the right tools, you support them along the way as far as helping them understand what those materials look like, what the standards look like, how it is that we can implement those in an appropriate way, you evaluate kids appropriately, you understand exactly where you're at. I think that you can get there. Now, kids obviously have a lot of obstacles to overcome. Teachers have a lot of different things that they're working with, but I believe it's attainable. I believe that we can help kids move forward. When I think about graduation rates, you guys have boasted a pretty good graduation rate over the years, but I will argue that if you're not 100%, you're not where you need to be. And it's almost impossible to get 100% with the way the accountability model works. It's not fair. Several of our principals are upset at high school level whenever they get a kid from out of state that's 18 years old and's got 2 credits. And that's simply not fair, as compared to, I wish sometimes that people would evaluate us with kids that we started with and when they ended with us, what does that look like? But the bottom line is you got to do the best you can with what you got, and you got to make sure that you put common sense practices in place to make sure you're helping those kids. And if they come to you with just a couple credits, you work with them the absolutely hardest as you can, as long as you can, until they leave you, and then hopefully they'll leave you either with a diploma or a skill set in order to be successful somewhere down the road. But if you're not at 100%, you're not where you need to be. You need to be as close to that 100% mark as you can possibly be, with the understanding that the state accountability model is sometimes really, really challenging because they change the rules every couple of years too. They've changed the graduation rate percentages and the way you calculate cohorts so many times over the past several years. It's so hard with the accountability model. But again, my mind is every kid that comes to the high school level needs to be prepared to go to high school. When they get into high school, when they walk across the stage, we will be successful if they get a diploma. And if they don't, that's an area that we need to take into consideration and try to make sure that we're working to improve that area. And when I think about my comfort level in regard to an instructional leader, 1 to 5, I'm not going to be haughty enough to say I'm a 5. I think I'm a 4. I think that I'm a pretty good instructional leader. I think that, I work well with principals and assistant principals and coaches instructionally. I've got some room to grow. But what I think I bring to the table that, makes up for me not being a 5 is a common sense approach in regard to looking at where we're at as compared to where we need to be and trying to help our team figure out a plan to move forward with that. Trying to make sure that we listen to a number of different things and we get the professional development that we need and that we support each other moving forward in a positive direction. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if we can figure out a way to put resources in teachers' hands, give them the time to plan together collaboratively and help support kids, I think everything else will work itself out.
Question 10. The board would like for you to tell them what skills you possess to improve the relationship with the divided county commission concerning the board's proposed building program.
That's a tough question, especially when you've got a county commission that's outside the realm of what you can tell them to do and that sort of thing. But I'll point back to when I was in Loudoun County. We had not built buildings for 20 or 30 or 40 years in some places. And we've got 9 buildings in Loudoun County. We've done a building project for 7 of those 9. We've done a brand new Greenback School, a brand new Fort Loudon Middle School, huge projects with Loudon High School Edition, Highland Park Edition. And we've done athletic facility renovations, classroom renovations, and so I think it's just being persistent. I think it's being with them and helping them understand what your vision is and trying to help them understand, what your needs are. And sometimes it's all about compromise. For example, Greenback School, we had a huge, it's a pre-K-12 school, we had a huge plan about what we wanted to do, a big Taj Mahal building. It didn't quite look like Alcoa's, great big, dome that they've got, but it was a really big building. It was a nice facility. And County Commission was balking at that because we didn't have enough kids to fill that building. And our thought was, well, you're never going to build it as cheaply as what you're going to build it right now. We will grow into that building at some point in time. But we had to compromise, and so the way the building lays out, if you guys have never been there, it's a big arching building. In the middle, you've got a 2-story wing. We've got middle school on the bottom and high school on top, but we had another wing just exactly like it that had, it was the thought process. We'd have middle school on both wings in the bottom and high schools on both wings at the top, with the understanding that we weren't going to fill it up anytime in the very near future. And so we had to go back and take out one of those wings in order to reduce the cost, and there was another amphitheater part of the building that we had to cut out to reduce it. And so we had to compromise in essence in order to be able to get there. But there was a lot of back and forth. We had to, my wife and I made signs, for parents to come out to commission meetings and support the building project. And we had people calling commissioners, and we had commissioners coming to meet with us. Now, I ate so many lunches, I think I gained 30 pounds, when we were working through this process. I mean, it was just trying to make sure the commissioners understood and heard us and appreciated why we were where we are. And you guys are in the same place. I mean, I think that you guys are right on the cusp of being able to move forward. People know that you guys need to move forward, and it makes sense, from a dollar sense wise, to be able to do it. If we can come up with a singular vision, if you've got a singular vision and we're ready to move forward in that facet, I think just getting that message out and continually be in front of them and figuring out what they're going to do in order to help us meet that mission. And then sometimes just understanding that you got to compromise along the way every once in a while in order to be able to move forward in a positive direction.
Dr. Vance, we've got 3 questions remaining. These are all more in a personal area. Time is, you've done well. So number 11 is, what social media do you use, and how should social media be used in our school?
So I have a Twitter account. I do not have a Facebook account, but we've got a Facebook account at school and at central office. And I know that you guys have Facebook accounts, you guys have Twitter accounts, and so I think that we need to use those media sources. We also use a Skyward account where we can notify parents through Skyward messages and things like that. It's a push message system to get information out. I think the more media sources that we can use, the better. But I think we need to be cognizant of how we're using them and why we're using them, and make sure that we're helping kids promote positive things for their learning environment. Make sure that teachers are getting the message out to parents. Make sure parents understand what we're doing in schools and why we're doing it and how they can help us with that. And then I think it's appropriate to consider using them for your building program too, helping people understand what that looks like. I think it's ultra important to make sure that kids have a good understanding of social media pitfalls though. I think so many times we see kids fall victim to prey, people that just prey upon them. So we need to make sure that we're educating babies in order to keep them safe and show them appropriate ways to use it. Show them ways not to bully each other. We're so easy in today's society for kids to use social media as a bullying tool. So I think just making sure you're taking it as a positive approach, putting a positive spin on it, and supporting your academic programs in schools will obviously lead to greater outcomes down the road.
Okay, number 12, would the board, it's a two-part question. You'll only have one evaluation on it, but you'll have to take it as a whole. Describe an accomplishment which best illustrates your public relations skills. And then, aside from that, give an example when you may have failed and what did you do to correct?
I think that I've got a decent set of public relations skills. There have been times where I have not necessarily agreed with some things that we were doing. Speaking about county commission, I've had great opportunities to meet with them, go to meetings with them often, try to make sure that we speak regularly and we develop good personal relationships along the way. That way, they're not just seeing during this time of year. I used to a long time ago. My biggest failure was my very first year in education. I spent more time with the board than I did the county commission, and that was unfortunate. I wish I had somebody back, like you, Mr. Qualls, that would have said, hey, brother, you need to make sure that you're developing relationships with them along the way. The biggest failure I had was going down the end of the hallway, because we're in the same building, the county commission on one side and the school board's on the other side. And I went down to the end of the hallway in early April, and I said, by the way, we'd like to have this kind of money in order to run schools next year. And they're like, where have you been all year? The only time I see you is when you come down and ask for money. And it didn't take long for me to appreciate the fact that I needed to back up on that, and I needed to start developing better relationships, longer lasting relationships. That way I understood what their interests were and how that applied to what we're doing in our schools, and what needs they felt like we needed to have, and that helped us when I was asking for budget requests. So I think just simply being a common sense person in regard to your approach, the way you handle that sort of thing. So I have since then remedied that by trying to go eat lunch with our county commissioners, or trying to, see them at ball games. I'll make a very intentful purpose visit to them, talk about their kids and, how they're doing, how they're handling business, and, what's going on in their lives. And that's helped me quite a bit more now, 8 years later, as compared to my first year as a superintendent. And they see me down the hallway now, and it's not easy. It's easy for them to say, well, you just stand here and ask for money. But rather we can talk about, personal things that we've got going on, similar interests that we have. And it works out a whole lot better now than what it did a long time ago. But again, I could have used that leadership. Somebody pointed me in that direction my first year. That was a learning experience for me for sure.
Okay, the last question. How do you relieve the stress of a leadership job, and what are your recreation habits?
This is a terribly stressful job. Mr. Rates and I were talking about this just a few minutes ago, 15, 16 hours sometimes, and, all kinds of burdens that come with it, trying to help people understand where you're at, not always being able to help them appreciate that point of view. Like I said earlier, I used to be a full contact fighter. That relieved all kinds of stress, but now that I've gotten a little bit older, I can't do that without carrying black eyes, and so probably doesn't relate well in the schools either. So I do a lot of different things, and I think finding a balance. My wife likes to hike, and so we take hikes. I teach a young adult Sunday school class. I enjoy preparing for that. That's really challenging. I've got a group of really smart kids that encourage me to be studied up. That way I don't look stupid when I get in the Sunday school class. I enjoy watching my kids play sports. They keep me quite busy. My little girl runs track and she plays basketball. My boy plays basketball and runs cross country and plays baseball. And so just getting out to those events and seeing my kids participate and do well in that sort of thing. There's a number of other things. I like to read. I like to do a lot of things. But the bottom line is, I think you've got to find a happy balance. There's a happy medium along the way. If you don't, you burn yourself out. I feel like you've also got to appreciate the fact that you do the very best you can for as long as you can, and then you set it aside. You come back and you try again tomorrow. I think that if you can do those things, and you can find that balance along the way, you'll be able to be successful. If not, you'll simply burn out. I've seen it a lot of times with administrators. It's so hard with today's problems that kids are facing and teachers are facing. So I think just trying to find a balance along the way.
Dr. Vance, that completes the interview session. If you would like, you might take 3 minutes or so to make any closing comments if you would like to make. The floor is yours for closing comments.
I've thought about this, for some time. I wasn't sure what kind of questions you guys were going to ask. You guys got some interesting questions. Those are some challenging ones. And I wasn't sure how to close, because I always want to know, why should I hire you for this job? What sets you apart from somebody else when I'm interviewing people? And when I think about me personally, for you, why not me? Why would you not want me to come and work in your school system? And I don't mean that in a haughty way. I just mean it in a very common sense, straightforward, realistic way. I've got 8 years of experience in Loudoun County Schools as superintendent, and like I said earlier with my conflict, it's unfortunate that news media sometimes portrays one side of the story. This will conclude Friday. I believe the board will be able to move forward in a positive direction, and I've still got 3 more years on my contract in Loudoun County Schools. I could still be there, and I love Loudoun County. They're doing some really positive things, but I believe that I can bring over great successes that we've had from Loudoun County. We've been exemplary in our school district for 3 years during the Tennessee accountability process. We've actually been exemplary more times than anybody in the state of Tennessee. We've been one of 14 this year. We were one of 11 schools that received 5s in all areas of growth for the accountability process. So one of 3 that were on both, the 11 set and the 14 set. We've got ACT scores and graduation rates that are higher now than what they've ever been. We've got more schools that are reward schools than probably most in regard to percents. We've got 9 schools, 5 of them are reward. We've got 2 that miss by 1 and 0.2% respectively. When I think about what you're looking to need a superintendent to be able to do with your building program, I think that I feel that skill set quite nicely. I've been involved with 7 building programs, 2 brand new schools, and so I think that I've got experience working with the county commission, and man, I've learned a lot along the way. I'll tell you what, and I'm not sure what all your individual fields are, but it's different doing regular school superintendent business as compared to working with a bunch of contractors. Man, I've learned a lot about what you do, what you don't do. How you talk to them is a whole lot different than how you talk to a teacher as well. And so, I feel like I've got some things that translate nicely into that. When you get me, you're going to get a hard worker. Somebody's going to roll their sleeves up and get in and do the absolute best that they can. I'm born and raised in Johnson City. I'm the first person in my family to ever go to college and graduate from college. I'm from a economically challenged home life. And so, when I think about my decision-making processes, it's always trying to do what's right by kids and help kids have the most opportunity to be successful that they possibly can have. And so I think ultimately when you get me, you get somebody that's going to be straightforward, it's going to be very direct, it's going to have very high expectations, it's going to have somebody that's going to try to put kids first in every decision-making process that we do. And if we can do that, I think everything else will work itself out. So let me conclude by saying, I appreciate you guys so much for giving me the opportunity to come out here. I think you got some really amazing things going on. I think you got some challenges ahead of you that you're going to have a hard time with, that you're going to need somebody that's proven, somebody that has got the opportunity to jump in, roll their sleeves up, work seamlessly with all of you guys, reach out across the whole board, and reach across the aisleway to the county commission to make sure we're on the same page. So I've also put together, Mr. Qualls, a 100-day plan about what my leadership might look like given the opportunity to be your superintendent in the upcoming months. And obviously this plan might change. It's hard telling what might happen between now and then. This might change in day 1. We might have to make decisions that would alter this in day 20. This might be garbage and we might not do any of it. But really ultimately when it's all said and done, I think that it's important to consider what it might look like. And as far as how I might get out in schools, how I might impact teachers, teacher assistants, principals, assistant principals, obviously supervisors, and people of that nature. So I'm just blessed. Lord's given me more than I deserve. He's awfully gracious to me and my family, and I hope that if He lays me on your heart, that I'll be able to say in 15 or so years from now, whenever I retire, whenever that is, we'll look back and we'll appreciate that we've done some really amazing things in Roane County schools.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank all of you guys for the opportunity to be here this evening. I'm honored to be here, spend some time with you, getting to know you, and you guys getting to know me as well. As you review my resume, which I think you have in front of you, you'll see I have a lot of experience in school and school system administration. I began 2 or 3 years ago, way back when, as a substitute teacher, and I worked my way through the ranks, and I'm very grateful for that because I was able to experience all of those roles, and I know what it feels like to be in each and every one of them. And it's really helped to shape the leader that I've become, because I understand what those folks are going through. I have experience as a classroom teacher, a coach, 3 sports, year-round coach, an athletic director at a high school. We had about 2,200 students at that high school. I was an assistant principal, a principal, and various positions in central office, instruction, director of instruction, K through 12, and director of testing. You name it, I feel like I've done it. And this is my 7th year as director of schools in Coffee County in Middle Tennessee. I'm happy to be here and share a little bit about myself with you guys and see if it's a fit for you and see if it's a fit for me. A little bit about myself. I'm a teacher and a coach in my heart. That's what I am. That's the way I look at everything. That's the way I look at problems. That's the way I look at developing people, is through that lens. I'm not afraid to work hard. I'm not afraid to take on challenges. That's how I've gotten to where I am, and it's made me pretty successful. Very positive person. I treat everybody that with whom I come in contact with dignity and respect. And it doesn't matter to me if you're a student that's had a 0 tolerance offense or you're the state commissioner of education. I'm going to talk to you the same way, because that's just how I operate. I'm the same with everybody. I've been fortunate to serve as a mentor for new superintendents across the state. I've been doing that for about 5 years, and that's really helped me reminds me to look at things through the eyes of someone new and to help them, coach them through those situations that they face for the first time, be it developing a budget or dealing with their school board or dealing with county commission. And that's been very valuable to me as well as them. And I've made some really, really good friends over the last 5 years. I've also been fortunate that my colleagues have recognized my skill set, and I was the superintendent of the year last year in my region. We have 16 school districts in the South Central region. And for the last 5 years, I've also been our region's representative on the TOSS board. That's the school system, the superintendent's organization. Most recently, I was elected as the president-elect for the TOSS organization. And that really, it surprised me, and it humbled me, and I was very excited. I called my mom. That's what we do, right? And I explained to her, what I had, I just got this honor, and I feel really good about it. And as in my true mom fashion, she said, well, congratulations, but don't screw it up. And so as I go forward, that's sort of my charge in leading our superintendent organizations, not to screw it up. I do believe that the best predictor of the future is the past. And if you'll look at my past, it'll show that I'm focused on doing what's best for students, for teachers, for school administrators, and for families. I'm passionate about making sure our students are prepared once they leave us in pre-K through 12, once they leave our doors. I want them to be successful people. I want them to be a good citizen. First and foremost, I want them to be able to contribute to society. Looking forward to sharing more about myself and my experiences. I do want to thank Mr. Pauls for recruiting me to come speak with you tonight. And I also want to say thank you all on behalf of your community, because you all have been through some grueling hours of sitting and listening. So my hat's off to you for that.
Okay, Dr. McFall, note that, Anita, I guess it's about 6:54, 5 or so. So you'll have your full hour now to entertain the questions of the board.
Okay, yes, sir.
So we'll start, you do have a copy there on your
Okay.
desk somewhere. Yes.
Yes, sir.
So you can, for clarification, you can certainly follow along. If, our first question for you tonight would be, if you are and have been successful in your present position, why do you desire to be the director of schools for Roane County?
I have been successful in my current position, and my board is, wants to extend my contract. But I will tell you, I applied in Roane County the same year you all hired Gary. And that's when I was looking to get into a superintendent. I was an assistant superintendent in Jefferson County, and that's when I was looking to get into it. I actually applied in Roane County back then. See what you missed? You would have had to deal with me, I actually had gotten that job before. I think it was a timing issue, and I didn't even interview. So anyway, I do want you to know this is not a new interest for me. So I'm interested in East Tennessee. I'm interested in coming back to East Tennessee, and we miss mountains, and it puts us back a lot closer to friends and family, and really we're empty nesters, so we're really looking at what's best for us now, not necessarily what's best for our children. So that's why I'm interested in Roane County, and also because you all are poised, I think, to do some really amazing things. You've got a progressive mindset and looking at building new schools and working with higher ed, and that's appealing. It's appealing to me.
Question 2 is a two-part question there, Dr. McFall, but we can evaluate on it as a whole question. First, what do you believe are the greatest attributes for top performance as a director of schools? And the flip side, for you personally, what do you see any deficiencies in yourself?
So the greatest attributes, I think, for a director of schools, there are so many, because it depends on the situation, what you need to be in that situation, as to how you attack it. I'm a competitive person, and always have been. I've been involved in athletics my whole life, and I don't like to lose, but I'm a hard worker, and I know that to be a successful director of schools, first and foremost, you are only as good as those people around you. And so I really think you have to be really, really good at developing talent and recognizing talent, and then getting out of their way and letting them do what they've been hired to do and not micromanage them. I can micromanage you if you force me to, but I don't enjoy that, and that's not how I normally go about my business. I'm level-headed. I can't imagine a situation that you could face as a superintendent that I haven't faced, honestly. So I've learned from those experiences. I think you have to be steady. I think you have to have a strong level of emotional intelligence. I think you have to be friendly and approachable. And it doesn't matter with whom you're speaking, you need to be representing your district and your students and your teachers well. I also think you have to have a great sense of humor, because there are some moments where you find yourself in some situations and you just gotta laugh. And I'm a firm believer in having a good atmosphere where you work, and people enjoy coming to work. That's important to me. I also think the greatest attribute in today's level of accountability is a strong instructional leader, and understanding instruction and understanding the components of that and what that looks like, because you can speak in generalities about instruction, but you have to understand the levels of accountability, and you have to understand the accountability model, and you have to know what that looks like together, all of those aspects together in a school system. And you have to be the person that takes that heat really from the State Department, because I don't want our teachers to feel that. So I really think you have to be lots of times a jack of all trades. I really do. Think quickly on your feet. And the second part of that, the deficiencies for myself as a director, I have a lot of those. I have learned over the years to compensate for my weaknesses. Sometimes when I first started, and I was a high school principal, and I really learned that this skill there, for the most part, was to delegate to folks. And because I sort of felt like, well, if I just do it myself, I'll know it's done right. And I realized that that's not a strength, that that's a weakness. And so I've had to make sure I develop folks and spend the time with them discussing the tasks and the things that I want them to do, so they're able to do those things, and then I back off. And that's something that I've had to work on. I'm a little bit impatient in that I want to improve like today, and I read a lot to help me grow as a leader, and I read this book, and it said, it takes a long time to turn a cruise ship around. It takes a really long time, and so that visual has helped me understand that, it's not like you have a little rowboat and you can just turn the ship that quickly. So I'm working on that, being more patient with results and seeing results and progress.
Okay, third question would be, what would be your vision for safe Roane County schools?
Yes, so that is the most important thing we do on a daily basis. And school safety, it's school resource officers, it's working alongside your local law enforcement, planning together, drilling together, talking to each other, them getting to know me getting to know them, having the right memorandum of understandings in place so we're all on the same page. It's definitely that. It's also about facilities. It's about making sure facilities are as safe as they can possibly be. And folks, I don't think you all are any different than anywhere I've ever been. Our buildings are not set up for the level of safety issues that we face these days. So we have to be creative, and we also have to invest some money and do what's right for our students. So you have to look at each facility different. And when we did our safety audits this summer and we got the emergency, the preparedness reports back from the state, I looked at ours and I was like, okay, so it's just something you see as a challenge and you get to work on it. And I know that you all have those challenges as well, and that's something that you have to work on a little bit at a time, but you have to plan for those. And sometimes those plans have to be, because of money or the lack thereof, you have to sort of prioritize those. Another level of safety, I think, for me is that are our folks prepared? Are our teachers, are our administrators, are our students? And I hate that they have to be, but are they prepared? And have we communicated with our family what that will look like in an emergency situation, and what they can expect from us and what hopefully we can expect from them? So it's really a level of preparedness and preparing and working with our teachers. And the last part of that is there's an aspect of school safety that really doesn't have anything to do with SROs and buildings, and that is the proactive side of our students. And that is recognizing our students early on who need extra support, who may be at risk for some sort of any issue that might cause you to have to put in your plan for safety. So it's recognizing those students that might need, or adults, or domestic situations, that might need that extra support. And the state's putting in place a threat assessment model and a team. And I worked with the state to help with that, because it's the exact same threat assessment that we did in Virginia. So, and we just, in Coffee County, we just finished going through a threat assessment with a student at our high school. We just completed, we did a home visit last night, and so we've been through that process with our district level team. And after we were done, and I was making sure we did this one right, because you need it to go right, and they were all like, oh gosh, this was great. You just sort of take a 360 look at a student and a family, and it was very helpful. So safety is broad and wide.
Okay, Dr. McFall, the fourth question, board would like for you to tell what your vision would be for future classrooms, and what do you feel about virtual classrooms?
Yeah, so I may not say what you want to hear. I am not someone that believes in the newspaper headlines that say school district A, you know, as 1-to-1 across the whole district, and that's the headline. I mean, that is great, that's a great thing to have, but just to say you're 1-to-1, it's like, so what does that mean? How are we using that technology to enhance instruction? Not just putting a device in everybody's hand, and so we can say that everybody has a device, but how are we using it instructionally to, number one, help our teachers teach more effectively and more efficiently? Because I can tell you, they're not as comfortable with that level of technology as our students are. So are our teachers trained? Do they understand how to infuse that technology into their lesson? Not that that technology becomes their lesson, but to teach them how to use that technology to make their job easier and make them more effective. And that takes a lot of work, because our teachers right now are overwhelmed in a lot of areas. So it takes a lot of work to get to that level with our folks. And I'm not sure about every community or every place in Roane County, but I can tell you in my experiences, not 100% of our students don't have access to Wi-Fi or to internet at home. So we face that as well. I believe that technology that we have to teach our students, it's great to have these devices, but we need to teach them how to use them responsibly, and also how to interact with them to help them in online learning, in courses that require online learning, because that's what they're going to be faced with. And my husband and I, we have 5 kids, and they're all older, and they've all, every single one of them has had a class online at college, and they struggled, and they're good kids who went through high school and did very, very well, but they struggled. And we've got to teach our kids how to do that while we have them, and we've got to help them be successful in that. And that's something that I believe that we should do. I believe that we need to teach them through the coursework. I think we need to prepare them for, teach them how to code, teach them how to develop things through robotics, and develop their skills in using that technology. Not necessarily just say we have the technology, but really use it instructionally to help them prepare. And the affective side of that technology use for me is we have more ways to communicate these days than we've ever had, our kids. And I don't know about you, but one of my kids can text me, and then I'll call him and he won't answer. And I'm like, what? He's like, just text me back. Don't make me talk on the phone. And so we really have to focus on making sure our kids can speak well and communicate well, and that's not a substitute for those good communication skills. But it's a tool, but it doesn't substitute in for those as well.
Okay, Dr. McFall, question 5 is a 3-part question. It's all relating to communication, of course, which is a great key to success. The real emphasis here is on the how and what. Relate how and what methods you might use to communicate with the following. And there's 3 constituency groups there. First, supervisors, principals, and central staff. Board members B, and community C, if you might take those in order. A, method.
Yes, sir. So in communicating with supervisors, principals, and central office staff, it depends on the situation. I will say, as a rule, as a general rule, my philosophy is anything that's informational in nature, I will send out in an email. If there is something that we need to work through together, then I want everybody around the table, and that's a face-to-face communication. I don't believe in having meetings just to have meetings. So if it's informational, I do want folks to find a different way to send that out or communicate that, rather than pulling everybody in for a meeting. I'm a firm believer that communication, good communication, effective communication can alleviate most conflict and most problems if you will take the time to communicate things well with any constituent. But I think with their supervisors, our principals, and our central office staff, they need to know my vision. I need to understand their experiences so we can all work together. And I like to get to know folks on a one-on-one basis. I like to get to know about folks' families. I like for them to get to know about mine as well. I like to get to know more about them as people than just what we do on a daily basis. So that type of communication is important to me as well. I do think with at least once a month, we all need to get together and share what's going on in our schools, in our school district, talk about where we're going, talk about our plans, what's coming up. And so I use those meetings, again, not sort of to give out dates and tell folks what's coming down the pipe, but we use those as development and building capacity of those folks to help them to be better at their jobs and to help us work better together as a team. And central office staff the same way. I do think it's important that we get together as a central office staff and that everybody knows what everybody else understands, not down to the detail level, but understands the big picture of what everybody else's job and how we all fit together, and that our purpose here on a daily basis. I gave my folks out a little card. We're here to make things better for other people, and I believe that. We're a service organization, and our clients are our students and our families, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to prepare our students and to engage our families. And so I want to communicate that to our supervisors and principals and central office staff. And with board members, again, my goal is to never let you be surprised. And I also ask in turn that you try not to let me be surprised, because communication is a two-way street. Otherwise, it would just be information that I was giving you. So I do believe in that. And you guys are the experts in your communities and with your constituents, and we're not. And we need to know what a situation might look like in the district you represent, versus another district, I may not have that big picture. So I would rely on you guys for that information. I'm a listener. I try to listen much more than I talk. And so I do want to listen as well as communicate with you. And honestly, the way I would communicate with board members depends on the board member and how the board member likes to communicate. Some folks email me, let me know, and I'm good. Some folks want a phone call. Some folks want to meet face to face. And honestly, depends on the person. I do like to have face-to-face exchanges with board members as much as possible, because a lot of times email, the tone may not always come through exactly how you meant it. So I do want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And I will also say that in the case something happens quickly, I will send out a text message. If I'm in a situation, for example, yesterday I was handed the resignation letter of our high school football coach. And listen, I get it. I mean, high school football coach, that's important. And so I wanted to let them know immediately, because I knew in probably 2 hours that was going to be everywhere. And I wanted them not to hear it from the newspaper or from the radio. So in that case, I sent out a text message. I do have one lady who does not text, so I gave her a quick phone call. So there are times where I will text if that's amenable to the board as well. And to board members and to supervisors, principals, central office staff, teachers, I think it's important that I'm accessible, because the director of schools, very rarely do I have a principal that will call me at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. They're normally not calling me to say, hey, what's going on? They need something, and they need help, and they need support, and I'm accessible to them always, and they know that. And they feel, I think every one of them will tell you that I answer their call when they call me. I will answer them. If I'm in a meeting like this, I will call them as soon as I'm out and see what they need to do. And I think they would all tell you that I'm a good communicator in that way. With our community, I believe that we need to tell our story. And I will tell you, in school systems, we don't do that as well as we probably could, and as well as we should, for a lot of reasons, mostly because we're all so very busy. But I do think it's a necessity, and it should be a priority that we publicize what's going on in our school systems and help not only notify our folks, but educate them as well about the workings of the school system and how things work. And with that, I've used social media is the most immediate way. Back in the day, we did newsletters and those types of things, and now we do those things, but we also add in a level of social media with Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and those methods of communicating. We email. We have a central a system that sends out messages to our families on a regular basis. They have it at the school level, and then they can sign up to receive messages from the district level, and that's important. I say all of those things, and it's still something we focus on and still something we struggle with, I think, in terms of communicating all school systems with our families. So it's very important. We want to make sure our families and our constituents know what's going on in our school systems. We want to make sure we're communicating with them our strengths and our weaknesses, and where we're going, our vision, and also how what they can expect from us. That's very important too. I'm a believer in civic organizations in a community, and I've been a member of the Rotary in Manchester for many years, and served as president and membership, and I think you name it. I think I've been most everything. But I do believe in that is a way that allows me the opportunity to get to know other business leaders and leaders in the community, and they get to know me firsthand, and that is a lot. I get a lot done in those meetings. We do good work with Rotary in our community, but I also do a lot with communicating to those folks about our school system and about what's going on. And I also speak at many of those. I'm speaking at the Kiwanis in the beginning of April, and sort of a status of the school system, updating them on where we are. I'm on the chamber board, and there's some boards that you're automatically on for your position, and then there's some that you're invited to be a part of. And if I'm going to be on a board, I try to do it. I commit to that, and I try to be a part of that, because I believe that that's part of the responsibility. The person leading the school system should be visible, and the folks in the community should know who that person is and be able to put a name with a face. And they also should be able to come up to that person and have a conversation, whether it's in the grocery store or Walmart or wherever it is. And my family will say, I don't want to go to the grocery store with you, we can't get out. But I think that's a good thing, that folks feel comfortable to come up and speak to me there. So communication does a lot to prevent a lot of issues, I think, in a school system and in a county, if you will take the time to think about it and to do it well.
Question 6, and you're pretty close to halfway, Dr. McFall, and you
Okay.
might be a question or two behind.
All right.
So just kind of keep
So
that.
stop talking. I get it.
Well,
I get it.
I'm not telling you that, I'm just telling you.
I hear you.
Okay. Question 6, how would you involve board members on school business, and would it be important to use standing committees to vet issues which impact board business?
Oh, like I said, you all are the experts in your communities, and it would be, it would just not be very smart for me to try to make all of those decisions on my own and not use the expertise around the table. So I definitely would want input on those issues. I also will tell you at the same time, I'm not the kind of person that I'm comfortable with somebody calling me and say, hey, I want you to hire my cousin Donnie. That's not something I really enjoy, and it's happened to me many times before. But I do think that it's important that I listen to what's happened maybe in the district, the experiences of other folks, and Gary and I know each other pretty well, and I call him and say, tell me what happened here, and then I call you guys and ask about your experiences there, and listen to what you have to say. And whenever I'm thinking about doing anything new or adding anything or taking anything away, and I'm not sure what your standing committees are, but that's sort of the first step in that process, is going and meeting with that committee and talking with them about what I'm thinking of doing, or getting their feedback on a direction that I'm thinking about going. So that is definitely something important to do. That's what your folks elected you to do.
Question 7 is, it's a 3-part question, Dr. McFall. It's all under director flexibility. We'll take them in order. A is, how do you deal with resolving conflict? B would be, how would you evaluate administrative changes? And C, how would you respond to parent-guardian issues after it's gone through the appropriate chain of command? If you take those in order, starting with A.
So dealing with conflict, and then let's talk about it. So that's kind of how I deal with conflict. And honestly, folks on my team say that's one of my strengths, because I'll have somebody sit in with me and I'll talk with a teacher about a really tough situation, and they'll leave, and the person will, I've had them say to me, you're the only person that I've ever been able to watch just dress somebody down, and by the time they leave here, they're your buddy. And I think that's a skill that you develop over time and with experience, because I've messed that up a lot in my early days. How would you evaluate administrative changes? When I first came to Coffee County as a superintendent, I met with each individual principal one-on-one, and I asked them about their school and had them tell me a little bit about themselves, and I told them a little bit about myself, and sort of a little bit about my expectations, but because that's important. I need to get to know them, and they need to get to know me, and I have very high expectations, and I want folks to work really hard for our students and families, and as long as folks are willing to do that, there's not a problem, and I'm willing to invest as much time as possible into helping to develop someone. At the end of the day, if they're not getting the job done, I try to figure out if it's a skill versus a will issue, and do they have the skill set to get the job done, and if not, that's where I try to help them. If it's that they don't have the will to do it right or to do the job, then that's where I'm also not afraid to remove people and replace people. And not something that I love to do, but it is definitely needed in some situations. And I've been through those tough situations in moving folks around, and I understand the laws, and I understand the processes that have to be in place. And I understand too, to be smart about how you do those things. Because even if something is legal, it still may not be the smart or the right thing to do. And I do respect folks that may have been in positions for a long time, or may have just been new to it and just don't understand and don't know any better. So I respect that, but at the same time, I'm going to develop you, and if I can, that's great, and if I can't, then we'll do something else. How would you respond to parent-guardian issues after it has gone through the appropriate chain of command? So, domestic situations, a principal can tell you they deal with that on a daily basis. Our family units look very different today than they did even 15 and 20 years ago. Number one, you want to make sure that we have a legal basis for anything we do. And I have a great relationship with folks in our district attorney's office, in our law enforcement office. They will call me, I will call them, and the sheriff will always answer my call, and I will always answer his call, and the DA as well, because we all know when we need each other that we need to be there available for each other. So if things have worked their way through the chain of command in terms of what's legal and what we have a legal basis to do with that student, in the end, and we've done everything we need to do legally, if it comes down to having to be my decision, it's gonna be what's in the best interest of that child. And I may have to ask a lot of questions and a lot of figuring out, but in the end, that's the only way I would know how to figure it. Hopefully it wouldn't get to that point, because we can make some headway with parents, or through the legal system, or through whatever system is involved in that, be it social services or whatever. But Hopefully, it won't get to that point, but in the end, I'm not afraid to make those tough decisions as needed.
If you flip the page, McFall will be on question 8. 2 areas the board would like for you to briefly tell them what your experience is in dealing with these 2 issues. A, improving job training skills for special ed and physical developmental loss handicaps, and B, building partnerships with business and higher education. If you take those in order, please.
Sure, and I'm assuming that A means job training skills for our students. So, I mean, that's, depending upon the level of disability in the student, we've got to make sure that our students can perform at the highest level possible for them. I do believe in putting kids in an inclusion situation whenever it's appropriate, and whenever that IEP calls for that, and that IEP team feels that that's an important thing, then we're going to do everything we can to make sure that student receives those proper accommodations and that proper training. We don't do enough, I think, in public ed, and maybe I say public ed, maybe in more in smaller or more rural districts, to help prepare our students for independent living, which is the goal. We may not can always reach that goal for every student, but that is the goal, and we need to make sure we back up and that we're doing everything we can to help make sure that we're preparing those students for that. We've got a program with work-based learning that our kids go out. They actually have a cafe, Second Chance Cafe, and they prepare lunches, and teachers order them, and it's been a great thing for those students and actually for those teachers as well. So physical development, handicaps, that's, you know, that comes down to, do we have either the right competent, talented therapists on staff? If not, do we contract with folks that are skilled in handling those challenges that our students have, and are we helping our students compensate for whatever those handicaps might be, and so that it lifts them up, levels the playing field with their non-disabled peers. And that's the goal, is that we're allowing that those students can participate either in classroom or on the field or in the band or whatever that it might be, is that we're leveling that playing field and giving them that opportunity. And sometimes that means thinking out of the box, but you have to look at it for each individual student, because all of those students deserve that. They deserve our best. Oh, I'm sorry. Building partnerships with businesses in higher ed. So we have really worked hard at this part of in my current school district, and with higher ed as well. We partner with MTSU a lot, and we have worked with them. We were the first to go in with them on a project called Project Impact. Because what I found was, when I went to Coffee County, and same way in Jefferson County, and the same way in Virginia, is our teachers want to do the best job that they can do, but sometimes they were not prepared adequately. And I can say that because I've been a part of that higher ed process, and I know that we don't teach teachers how to teach reading as well as we should. And if you've not looked at a 5th grade math standard lately, you really should, because it's hard. And so a teacher who concentrated K-6, they got that wide variety, but they didn't get that dedicated maybe math instruction that they really need for these standards, because they're tough. So we worked with MTSU on a project called Project Impact, and this is our 6th year. They kept renewing the grant, and it has grown, and now 6 other districts are working with them, but we're still sort of their main school district that we're working with them, and that single partnership has helped improve the skills of our teachers, I think, more than anything. They actually learned the math. They learned how to teach the math at a much deeper level. Our businesses, we really engage our community, and I would encourage you all to look at our Facebook page and see what we do with involving our community and our community leaders in things like, we have a Stuff the Bus where we work with all of our businesses in the community, and we actually take a bus to their business, and they come outside and they've got supplies for us, and some of them even ride the school bus with us, and we do that. I think last year we had 42 different businesses that we went to, and then we have a day that all those things we've collected. We have a student expo, and they come and they help with that, and they get to see firsthand all of the students that benefit from that and the families. And I think it's important that they know me and they know what I stand for, and that's a very important partnership is with your local businesses, for sure.
Question 9 is a 3-part question, and it's all under the umbrella of instructional leadership. 3 parts, starting with A, how important is it for students' ability to read on 3rd grade level when they're in the 3rd grade? And B, how can Roane County improve the graduation rate? And C, what is your comfort level, 1 being the least, 5 the greatest, where you see yourself as an instructional leader? If you would, Dr. McFall, start with A, please, first, and go down the list.
Yes, sir. So literacy is the backbone of everything that we do in schools, and it has been our focus for the last 3 years, is improving the literacy rate. So absolutely, we want students to be able to read on grade level at 3rd grade. That is the goal. I know the state's goal is 75, but we want 100% of them. But the devil is in the details. Like, what does that mean? What does it mean to read on grade level in 3rd grade? What's your measurement? And that's really, the state's measurement is TN Ready. And if you know anything about our TN Ready literacy scores, that's where we struggle as a state. So as superintendents, what we're seeing is whatever we may use for progress monitoring, be it Ames Web or STAR or whatever it might be, we're seeing that growth in our school districts. And so when we see growth and it says that 70% are reading on grade level, and then TN Ready says 45%, it's sort of like, okay, well, how do we know that TN Ready is an adequate predictor of whether a student is reading on grade level? So it's something that a group of us superintendents have been working with the state to really look at. When you say have kids reading on grade level by 3rd grade, is that a Lexile level? What exactly does that mean? So it's important to understand what you're actually trying to measure, and that we're all measuring using the same tool. Improved graduation rate. The graduation rate is actually really good as of now. It can always be better. I think you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, and we really have to look at alternative education as not only as a punitive measure for students, but as a tool to help some of our students who have challenges in other areas, be it mental health, or physical health, or family dynamic situation that is interfering with their progress as a student. We've got to look at each one individually and look at our graduation rate 1 student at a time and set up those situations that allow them to be successful. That is hard, but that's what's going to make the difference, is 1 student at a time. And my comfort level as an instructional leader, one of my weaknesses is sort of and Mr. Pauls can tell you this, because I've had this discussion with him, is sort of bragging on myself, and I don't feel comfortable doing that because I'm just one member of a team. But instruction is definitely an area of strength for me, and I would rate myself a 5 there.
Hey, Donna, you've got about 14 minutes. You've got 4 questions.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. Okay, our next question will be question 10. What skills do you possess to improve the relationship with a divided county commission concerning the board's proposed building program?
You know, I'm not surprised that there might be a divided county commission. I've worked in several school districts, and it's always a relationship that we all need to improve. And we have 21 county commissioners in Manchester and 3 different school systems in the county. So I am quite versed in working alongside those folks. So when I came to Coffee County, they had money, they had $47 million in a building fund that they had there for 7 years. And they could not, they just weren't able to move forward. And the dilemma there was deciding the spot to build on. And literally 7 years, they had fought back and forth. I want it built here, no, I want it built here on this land, nope, I want it on this land. And so I came into that, and honestly, I will tell you within, and again, I struggle with this, but you know, within the first year of me being there, we bought the land, we had picked the architect, we had the plan, and we had put out for bids in that first year. And so I think it takes a lot of listening, and it takes a lot of trying to put yourself in that other person's shoes rather than just trying to be heard. And and also being willing to evaluate your own preconceived notions. I will tell you, I came from a small county in Virginia, and my high school 2 years ago, they consolidated the county, and so my high school, and I was on the state championship team there, and we had these plaques, and we had all these things, and it was hard. I'm not gonna lie, it was really hard, and it's hard today when I go back there and like all that. It used to be my high school, but now I see the school that those kids are able to go to, and it is amazing, and they have such amazing opportunities that I didn't get to have, and so I'm not saying that it's always the right thing to do, but I am saying we all have to step back and try to focus on what's best for our students. And that it's hard. I'm not going to say there's an easy answer, but I do know that at the floor, the bottom, at the end of the day, folks on county commission, folks on school board, school administrators, parents, we all want what's best for our children. So that's sort of the starting point that I think we can all agree on, and that's where we kind of have to start from there. So not an easy answer.
Number 11, these last 3 are more personal questions. What social media do you use, and how should social media be used in our schools?
So I actually do our school system's Twitter account, and I have another gentleman who does the Facebook account. And personally, I use those things as well. We also have another girl who does Instagram, but we do work together. Social media is a blessing and a curse, and it's a great way to get out our message. And it's also a tool that can be used against folks, against our students. And that's another one of our responsibilities is how to make sure we're making sure we're teaching our students how to use social media properly. It should be used, I think, as a communication tool. I don't think it's sort of should take the place of face-to-face or good communication, but it is one way of communicating with our communities. We developed the Get Your Selfie to School. I don't know if y'all have seen that, but I think we're up to 20 other school districts now are using our motto, Get Your Selfie to School, trying to combat chronic absenteeism. And we've got shirts and that sort of has blanketed our social media for a while. And we actually have improved our chronic absenteeism by over 5% in 1 year. So it's working, and it's something that we try to use social media to get our word out and educate our folks about what chronic absenteeism is. And so we try to use it for positive.
Okay, question 12 is a two-part question. Describe an accomplishment which best illustrates your public relations skills. The flip side is an example where you may have failed and what you did correct.
I think the best measure of my public relations skills is that I've been able to function in every role that I've had successfully. And I think if you go back and you were to ask anywhere where I've been, they want me back. And to me, that means a lot to me, because it means that I do put forth a positive reputation about myself, and shows about my work ethic, and about how I speak and interact with folks. I'm asked regularly to do presentations. I was asked, I'm one of 3 women in Tennessee to be asked to speak to a group of rising administrators, women, how to get more women in administrative roles and in the superintendency. And I was one of 3 to do that, and that was a huge honor for me. And so I think by the fact that my peers have elected me to represent them as their president-elect shows that I have those good public relations skills, that they would be willing to let me speak on their behalf to legislators and to those folks at the State Department. I think that's the best example of that. When I may have failed in what you did, I fail a lot, but I look at failure. If you win and you're successful at everything you do, sometimes you lack the skill of reflection, and I'm a very reflective person. So when I feel like I've failed at something or haven't done my best at something, it affords me the opportunity to look back and reflect on maybe how I needed to do something differently or better the next time. Or if I feel like our team hasn't done our best and maybe we've failed, it's an opportunity for us to gather together and collaborate on how we can do things better. And if you always win, I'm not sure you always get to do that. So sometimes failing at something or not doing your best gives you grow much more from failure than you do just winning all the time. And it definitely builds a lot of character. So sometimes failing helps your team to grow and to be better, I think.
Okay, the final question would be, how do you relieve the stress of a leadership job, and what are your recreation?
So it is very stressful, and you are never not the superintendent of schools. It does not matter whether you're in the grocery store and you've had a really crappy day, or you are at home and somebody comes and knocks on your door. You are always the superintendent of schools. And I have learned to manage that stress. I will tell you, my husband and I are we like outdoors things, and honestly, that's what's appealing to us about Roane County is we like to hike. And last year, we're empty nesters, so last year we kept talking about it, and we finally bought a boat last year. So we go out on the lake all the time, and that's a way that I can kind of get out and get away from things, and that's one of the things that are appealing to us about Roane County, is that those things that we like to do on a daily basis, but have to sometimes only do those on weekends. Somewhere like this will afford us the opportunity to do that more often. So that's normally how I decompress.
Dr. McFall, that completes the 20 questions. You used your time very well, so if you would like, you're welcome to make any closing statement at this time.
So I'm really excited. I'm excited to be here with you guys tonight and excited about this opportunity. And I do believe that Roane County has the components to be one of the best districts in the state. I hope you'll consider my qualifications and my experience when you make your decision. I hope you'll choose me as your next director of schools. I've proven myself in every position, and I will do the same here for you. I hope to be able to make Roane County my home and have my family visit here. In closing, again, I want to thank Mr. Qualls, because he's just been invaluable to me in a lot of ways, and not just here tonight, but in a lot of ways. And to all of you guys for taking your time and making sure you're doing your best on behalf of the students and the families in Roane County. So thank you very much. And good luck to you. However it turns out, good luck to you.
Thank you, Dr.
McFall.
Thank you.